Hello everyone, thank you for being here. I'd like to take you to the time when I was about 8 years old. I remember very well that at that age you were young enough to ask your parents if you could stay up longer to watch a nice movie, for example. So at one weekend evening, I asked my parents, my very first mentors by the way, "Mom, Dad, can I please stay up tonight to watch Karate Kid?" And they said yes. And that's how I met Mr. Miyagi. Mr. Miyagi is one of my childhood heroes. And I'd like to introduce you to him during this talk and to my other Mr. Miyagis, to some of my other Mr. Miyagis. But before I do so, I would like to know something first. Please raise hands if you're thinking, Mr. Who? All right, no problem, we'll come to this. But first, who am I? My name is Jille. I'm a Java software engineer at Ordina, and I currently have an awesome assignment at the Dutch Forensic Institute. I live together with my other half and mentor Frank in Breda, the Netherlands, and with our adventure cat Jada. And yes, an adventure cat is really something, so if you're triggered by the term right now, go to www.adventurecats.org and see that we're not the only geeks here. She's also named after one of my other heroes and also a mentor, Yoda. And Yada also means chosen one in Hebrew. So at that point, because she's a cat, you know, everything came together. I also like to keep myself busy with the magic of tech, people, health, sports, traveling, and riding my motorbike. Then now, Mr. Miyagi. I think I can't introduce Mr. Miyagi to you any better than the main character of the story, Daniel, who's also been called Daniel's son. You are about to meet the greatest guy. This guy, he's funny, he's smart. I mean, you got a problem, he's got the answer. He's like no one you'll ever meet. And on top of that, I do it here. It's working again. It's not working. I've heard about these problems, but it wasn't in my room so far. It kind of works, but... But thanks for saying, though. All right. So, I was about to introduce you to Mr. Miyagi. And I cannot do that any better than the main character of the story, who's called Daniel, and who's also been called Daniel's son. You are about to meet the greatest guy. This guy, he's funny, he's smart. I mean, you got a problem, he's got the answer. He's like no one you'll ever meet. And on top of that, he just happens to be my best friend. Mr. Miyagi comes from Okinawa, Japan. He has a deep philosophical knowledge of life and extraordinary karate skills. He's a genuinely caring, sweet, warm-hearted, and friendly person. He's wise, very, very wise. And he has an ingenious sense of humor. With that package, he was Daniel's karate sensei, a mentor. And he made him a worthy champion. As an 8-year-old, what I loved about Mr. Miyagi is that he took the effort to pass on something he was very good at, selflessly, and initially without knowing each other well, simply based on the right chemistry they had with each other. I think I even wished he was my grandfather, because I've never really had a grandfather figure in my life. And also because from a very young age, I wanted to become very good at what I do. Mr. Miyagi's martial art caught my interest because I felt that if I could do that, I could always take care of myself. And he thought with morals in place. He was never aggressive and would only fight to defend himself, showing that he did not allow his abilities to corrupt his mind. He was teaching Daniel both life lessons and karate to protect himself. I was hooked from the moment I saw this movie. And I also decided that I want to become my own hero, a Kelly-san. Now I'd like to take you to some of my own Mr. Miyagis, my own mentors. 2 years passed after my wish to become a Kelly-san, and then it happened. My own karate journey started with my own real sensei. The karate school where I ended up at happened to be one of the 2 best in the Netherlands at the time. So it started to look more and more like the real Karate Kid. My sensei was a fantastic teacher, completely devoted in what he taught us. And with us, I mean the small tournament group I was part of. He taught us all that you can achieve a lot with dedication, discipline, the right mindset, practice, and perseverance. That karate is a weapon, that you must always try to solve things with compassion first. The dojo was inside a primary school where we could train 2 days a week. But with the tournament group, we needed to train more often, so that ended up in us often training outside. And I can tell you, there were intense times, but those were fantastic. And in the end, I can also say it has borne fruit. In the first place, it made me more confident at school. Because getting through secondary school and unscathed felt like a challenge of its own. During this time of life, your personality is going through an important development, and it will be shaped by negative and positive experiences. I was neither one of the most popular nor the least popular students. I remember well that at one day, I had to deal with, both literally and figuratively, the big bully of the class who would occasionally slap some of the boys. And I succeeded, because I was confident enough when it was needed. And in the second place, in my 6th year of karate, I've made it to the brown belt. I've won about 50 prizes. I became national champion in several disciplines and 3rd of Europe. So what, you might think? Well, the point is that mentoring has had a very great impact here. Although meeting my sensei was more a twist of fate, he has been of a huge importance in my life. And if you're still a little skeptical and think, well, nice example, but I don't quite see it happening at a professional level, stick with me then, because in that case, my second Mr. Miyagi might inspire you. In the 2nd year of my law studies, I wanted to work at a law firm as a part-time job because I was still a student. So I sent application letters and I was invited to have an interview with my other Mr. Miyagi, or rather Mrs. Miyagi. I had a choice of several future mentors from different law firms, but I finally chose her because we had a great conversation and I felt the right chemistry. It was just there. And I was confident enough that she would be able to take care of my vulnerabilities and that she also would become a good mentor. Although we sometimes had our difficulties, because that can also happen in a mentoring relationship, we always managed to work things out together. I really learned so incredibly much from her. I remember well that when I just started, on one of my first days, she asked me to answer an email with a legal question from a client. And I thought, how do I actually answer properly to a client? I had no idea. And really, that's so simple and so basic. But someone has to tell you. Especially if you imagine your client to be a super duper very important person and you want to answer that person as such on your first working days. I got my first legal document back, all in red. And that was the color of the pen with which the document was corrected. And then I thought, okay, so the last 2 years of my study were like getting your driver's license. You know your theory, you're not a danger anymore, but that's all there is to it. You really learn the skill by observing and applying it into practice. Because of her, my learning curve was steep. I was able to become a good lawyer beneath her wings, and I soon got my own cases in which she always remained my sounding board. And again, the mentoring relationship has paid off. The legal case that has stayed with me to this day is the one in which I assisted a woman who had just recovered from cancer. She wanted to go back to work, but her employer was acting strange. She had an important position at a large banking firm, and it became clear that they wanted to get rid of her. It became a case based on the Dutch law regarding equal treatment, and I'm not sure how it is in your countries, but in the Netherlands it's very hard to win a case based on equal treatment because it's really hard, well in this case, because it's really hard to prove that someone is discriminated against based on illness. But I succeeded and we won the case. Again, because I had the privilege of learning the craft from a good mentor. At that time, I had everything in place from a materialistic point of view. But from a certain moment, I went to work crying because the work didn't make me happy anymore. In 2014, I decided to quit the legal profession because I believe that you should do what makes you happy in life. And certainly also because I wanted to leave my job well done. Shortly afterwards, even more happened. Within 5 months, my father died, my unhealthy relationship came to an end, and with that, I also lost my house. So, that was quite a rocky road. I felt completely lost. I no longer knew who, what, how, why, and where. So, just when I made the decision to go to the other side of the world with my motorbike, I found another Mr. Miyagi. And nowadays he's my best friend. After this mentor put his mentoring skills into place and some sort soul searching of my side, I finally came close to myself. For the first time, I really knew the answer to the aforementioned questions. I had a throwback to the IT lessons I had at secondary school. Back then, we made our website, I call it a website, but it wasn't really a website, with HTML. And I made my own currency calculator because we went to euros back then. So I made my own currency calculator in Excel. And I really loved it. I thought, oh my God, I can do magic. So I also remember that I wanted to become an ethical hacker. So I decided when I quit my job as a lawyer that I wanted to become a software engineer with a passion for security. All these mentoring relationships I just told you about have been of irreplaceable value to me. They have been life-changing. And I've told you these stories for a reason. This talk is based on my experience of mentoring since I was 10 years old. And by sharing my experiences as a mentee, I hope I can make you feel how powerful mentoring can be. And there's more. So one tip for my mentor is, don't forget to take that selfie when you're on stage. So I hope you will laugh with me to make that selfie. All right. 1, 2, 3. Thanks. Back to the serious part. When I took my first step into my career to the IT world, I discovered that mentoring is not a matter of course. I was a tester before I started as a software engineer. And I was told to take that path because I didn't have an IT background. So I applied, I clearly stated that I wanted to become a software engineer, and I was hired. I got training, which consisted in doing some internal courses and getting the internal certificates which go with those courses. And I got my TMAP certificate with regard to quality engineering. I landed in a fast-paced environment, and I certainly learned something, but much of the time I was trying not to drown. And at first, there was really no guidance at all. I asked a lot of questions, but got so many different answers back, and which made me ask more questions, that it even came down to an even greater challenge not to drown. It was overwhelming. So, at a certain point, I was kind of paralyzed by analysis, and I thought, things needed to change if I wanted to obtain my goal to become a software engineer. So, shortly afterwards, I had a fantastic job interview with one of Ordina's directors in a restaurant cafe in Breda. And that's how I became a software engineer. And not just that. I also found a mentor again. And that has really been a difference of day and night. For example, there are times when I get lost in reading. And when I finally finish reading the documentation, I think, again, what have I just learned? And of course, again, I've learned something, but often I still don't have the answers to many of the questions which made me read the documentation in the first place. Instead, new questions came up. There are also plenty of moments when I have to Google pretty much every word in a sentence, concluding that there is a lot of jargon. And then, jargon in the definitions of jargon. And so further and further and further. Which keep me Googling almost every word in a sentence. So, well, I'll try to find my way around, try to invent the wheel myself. I keep on missing something. And that something is context. And that's where mentorship comes in. Because guess who's giving me this context? My own Mr. Miyagi in the IT world. That over-enthusiastic tech lead who cannot stop talking when I ask him a question. And don't get me wrong, because I love it when he's talking. Because every time, over and over again, that's what giving me that crucial context. It really brought home the importance of mentorship again. And then it clicked. I've been driven by the question why all my life. My mother used to tell me that I asked this so often that it became annoying. So, when I found out that mentoring is not a matter of course in the IT world, I thought, why? What a pity. And that's exactly the reason why I'm standing here today and why I'm sharing here my experiences with you. To add weight to it, I've made a link with research. I looked at whether my own experiences and ideas can be found in society, science, or both. Now that I have shared some experiences, I would like to take you to the following question. What exactly is mentorship? I remember this definition. Mentoring is a learning relationship involving the sharing of skills, knowledge, and expertise between a mentor and mentee through developmental conversations, experience sharing, and role modeling. The relationship may cover a wide variety of contexts and is an inclusive two-way partnership for mutual learning that values differences. If you ask me, mentoring is also a skill and an art that you can learn by experiencing it, by doing it, by being it. Mentoring takes different forms and they are all important, but for the rest of my talk I'll focus on the apprenticeship form, because almost all of my experiences which I have just shared with you are this form of mentorship. Apprenticeship focuses on the development of the apprentice, the mentee, where the master, the mentor, trains the apprentice to become a master himself at one day. Translated to the IT world, apprenticeship is the training of a new generation of developers through the combination of a general study program combined and enforced with the on-the-job training from a mentoring relationship. I'd like to bring up Robert Greene here. This is Robert Greene. He is the author of the books The 48 Laws of Power and Mastery. In his book, The 48 Laws of Power, he states that the ultimate form of power is mastery. In his book Mastery, he explains the power of apprenticeship by explaining the biographical stories of great masters such as Darwin, Goethe, and Da Vinci. Because before they became masters, they were apprentices themselves. He says the following about the apprenticeship model. The greatest system ever invented for the training of skills and the achievement of tacit knowledge. In other words, of context. He also speaks about the apprenticeship phase, which he describes as follows. After your formal education, you enter the most critical phase in your life. A second practical education known as the apprenticeship. Every time you change careers or acquire new skills, you re-enter this phase of life. Looking at ourselves, don't we often say that we actually learn on the job? The verb mentor comes from ancient Greece. According to Homer's Odyssey, mentor is Odysseus' counselor and friend. Looking at my own experiences and the outcomes of my research, I can actually tell you that the mentor generally helps the mentee by challenging and encouraging the mentee, giving emotional and moral support, being a sounding board, discussing goals and how to get there, giving advice, integrating the mentee into the working processes, the work environment, the organization's culture and politics, let's say the how we do things here part, and helping to build a network. A mentor helps the mentee to walk the path he already walked by sharing his mistakes, his woes, his wins. The mentor already overcame similar challenges and obstacles the mentee will encounter on that path. It has given me the insight and confidence in the things I do. And it's also worth pointing out that the mentoring relationship also benefits the mentor. And this is also reflected in the definition of mentorship I just gave. Because through the dynamics of mentoring, the mentor is in turn challenged in his mastery. In being so, he develops his leadership skills, his management skills, and his interpersonal skills. Who is the mentor? Well, mentoring will only have a positive impact on mentees, organizations, and mentors in a whole if it's done in a good and thoughtful way. In fact, at its worst, it can do enormous harm to a person. And this lies in the nature of the mentoring relationship, because it's based on respect and openness and trust. It reveals vulnerabilities. Therefore, as far as I'm concerned, being a mentor comes with a duty. The duty to do what lies within one's circle to make it a positive experience. On the one hand, by focusing on someone's strengths, and on the other hand, to be honest about someone's improvement points. A good mentor is one who's really capable of giving constructive feedback. Strict, but fair. It must be someone you can discuss with freely and without fear. Someone who has the mentee's best interests at heart. And who's also capable of understanding the path the mentee is walking. That being said, this also means that not anyone is suitable for the mentor role. A mentoring relationship can make or break a mentee, as I just said. So I'm going to unpack 10 best practices. 1. A free choice. And this might sound like common sense, but it's not. It's very important to let the mentee and mentor choose each other, because you can't force a mentoring relationship. Like I said, there needs to be a good chemistry, and that tends to be a good starting point. And also give the mentor and the mentee the freedom to change mentors if things don't work out along the way. Or if some skills are not enough anymore, or other skills are needed. Train the mentor. Number 2. So, considering mentoring's fragile nature, it should not be taken lightly. In any case, let the mentor walk his own path to become a mentor or a better mentor, but with a set of basic skills. Think of certain coaching skills, for example, how to guide without judging, or how to give that constructive feedback. Number 3, match. Make a match based on working and learning skills. Let the mentor and mentee calibrate with each other. Make sure that they discuss each other's do's and don'ts, and that they discuss each other's goals, interests, and needs, that those are aligned so that they have a good time. Let them have lunch together. 4, a trust-based relationship. So, the mentoring relationship is a trust-based one. What happens there must stay there. In order to let them build trust, give them enough time, space, and contact moments. Because again, you cannot force trust. Number 5, an agenda. Set an agenda, which also may consist of having no agenda, a walk without agenda, or having that lunch together, which I just said. And it's also good to set some intermediate goals and follow-ups together, so that you really work towards something together. Number 6. This is really important. No copy and paste. The mentee is not a clone of the mentor. So it's really nice to hear the experiences of the mentor, how it was in his time, the mistakes he made, what the mentor wants the mentee to protect from, you know what I mean, right? So I think you got it so far. But the mentee is definitely not a mini-me of the mentor. And because a mentor shares a lot of himself, this is really a major pitfall. The key here is empathy. Being able to feel and understand how someone else experiences the world. without judging. The mentor therefore must be able to step out of his own frame of reference, and he should ask the mentee what the biggest challenges and barriers are to success right now, for example, with what he can help. Ask how the mentee learns the best, because everybody does that in a different way. The answers to those questions may not be the same as what the mentor has been used to all of his life. And he must be able to deal with this. Last but not least, every senior and mentor should not forget how some things they learn right now might be easier to learn because they can build on the things they've already learned. They too started in an apprenticeship phase with their own challenges. Number 7, the workflow. Make mentoring part of the workflow. As an employer and client, offer a sufficient amount of hours apart from the on-the-job training and everything that comes with it organically. You can think of an average of an hour a week. So when I started my first assignment, I had a mentor, and then every Friday in the morning we had a conversation of at least 1 hour, because I had a lot of questions from what I've learned on the job and from the documentation and the study and the self-study I did. And that was really useful. Get some seniors and tech leads who have the core skills and the knowledge about the technologies you want, but also the ability to become that good mentor. Put your money where your mouth is by truly providing those growth and development opportunities. You will get really good new employees in return. 8, a mentoring program. Provide a mentoring program. Take different groups into account, like students, graduates, lateral entrants like me. A mentoring program is different from an onboarding program and a young professional program with basic training. It's complementary to that and a multiplier to its success. Create a moment of evaluation for yourself from the participants, because after all, improvements are made along the way. The mentee's performance. The mentor is not responsible for the mentee's performance. It's up to the mentee what he does and what he do. And the mentor only supports the mentee. Number 10, mistakes and successes. Appreciate the mistakes. Celebrate the successes. And please, do not only say it, but live it. Because give the mentee enough space to grow just by making those mistakes. The greatest growth takes place outside of the comfort zone. But outside of the comfort zone is also the place where the most mistakes are made. The thing that even gets me more than the missed opportunity that mentoring is not yet normalized in our community is what I'm going to tell you now. As a community, we have a problem. But before I dive into that problem, I would like you to ask yourself this first. Did I have to deal with delayed releases? Missed revenues? Increased project costs? An excessive workload or higher stress level? An increase in project duration or operational costs? Reduced quality of the software developed? A limited ability to meet the objectives of the business? If your answer to one or more questions is yes, then I have bad news. If your answer to all of the questions was no, I have the same bad news. Because this is what our future looks like if we keep doing what we are doing now. According to CompTIA's data, the required level of expertise in job requirements for software developers is mainly between 3 and 10 years of experience. The demand for juniors lags behind, even though they are the meteors and the seniors of the future. According to Skillsoft's data, 75 of global IT decision makers report a skills shortage in the IT workforce. This is an increase of 145% since 2016. And I can imagine these numbers don't really resonate, so here are some other numbers to put this into a little more perspective. It is expected that in 2022, the financial impact of the IT skills shortage will result in a loss of $775 billion worldwide. This is due to delayed releases, missed revenues, or increased costs. Sounds familiar, right? In 2019, this was $302 billion. So that was the half of the amount, less than the half of the amount that it is right now, or the expected amount. So there are simply not enough qualified candidates. It's probably a dead giveaway, but I'll say it anyway. Doing nothing changes nothing, except for these outrageous numbers, as you see. So doing nothing costs more time and more money every day. As a developer, you notice this, for example, by an excessive workload and higher stress levels. And other signs are an increase in project duration, reduced quality of software, and a limited ability of meeting the business objectives. Mentoring is the solution for our community's problem. Because mentoring also turns out to be, first another thing, mentoring also turns out to be a good talent management strategy. It ensures the learning and growth within a company. And it also shows that it values its employees. Mentees have better career outcomes than employees without a mentor. The performance of mentees is higher than the performance of employees without a mentor. And mentors also experience a greater engagement and satisfaction than non-mentors. It also provides a setting in which more things are created and shared. If mentoring becomes an integral part of an organization, it can also be carried out in a more cost-efficient way and a more scalable way. I strongly believe that we can create the meteors and the seniors of the improved future. We can do this by matching today's students and juniors with a mentor. And beyond that, this system of mentoring has survived for so long for a reason. Other professions have applied this mentoring program already for many years. It picks up where theory leaves off, and it lets the mentee build up his own wealth of knowledge, his own experience and expertise in an irreplaceable way. The mentee also has a steeper learning curve. I end up where I began, to complete the circle. With karate, Because for me, mentoring is like a kata. In ancient times, the kata was developed by masters and practitioners of Chinese Kung Fu as a way of archiving their knowledge and passing it on to a younger generation. Because existing forms of knowledge transfer were not suitable for this purpose. Mentoring is just like that, a specific and necessary form of knowledge transfer. It's also crucial to mitigate IT staff shortages as much as possible. I hope my story has made it clear by now. And if you search for mentoring success stories yourself on the internet, you will find an overwhelming amount of those. I want to leave on the note that I know that it's hard to change in one day. But don't forget the bad news here. If we do nothing, we are screwed. And that's why I'd like to challenge you. I'd like to challenge you to think how you can integrate mentorship into your daily work. I'm sure that some of you are in a position to bring this into practice. And I would appreciate if you do, because at that moment, in that way, you can take care of yourself and for the others who come after you. Just one passionate person can make a difference, so imagine what we can do as a community. Having your own Mr. Miyagi shouldn't be luck, but a given. Be Mr. Miyagi or find one. Are there any questions?
Do you have any tips on how to introduce such a thing in the organization, small or big?
So the question is, do I have some tips how you can integrate it into your organization? Yes. I think if it's completely new, you can just do it by example, leading by example. That can be a way. You can just introduce the idea within the organization itself by the management, and also, for example, show them the numbers I just showed you, because I think you have a case then. Most of the time, people think, oh, the mentoring part is about social things, and well, we don't have time for that. But I really think, I really see the link with the guidance I did not have from the first day and on, and with the IT skills shortage. Because if you have that mentor, and I experienced it myself, your learning path is steeper. So I think the numbers might also be a good idea to show to your management. Does that answer your question? Yeah. All right. Yes? Why do I think that we don't? I don't know. I should ask you, but yeah, why? I don't know. I don't know. Have you an idea? Maybe, yeah.
I think I have an idea. It's just to cut costs.
Yeah, but the funny part, like I just showed, it costs more if you don't have that mentor, because it takes longer. And yeah, if we do what we're doing now, we forget the juniors, and then the juniors lag behind. And what we're going to do then, when the juniors want to become a meteor, and the meteors and the seniors are just, yeah, growing, there will be a bigger gap in between. Yes? Yeah, so of course there are some reasons, but if you ask me what is the reason, I have no idea. But the reason indeed can be that people's nature is to focus on short-term results. That's the nature of people. And the thing with mentoring is that you don't see it in the short term, you see it on the longer term. And if you are able to step over that short-term vision, then you can see the reward. But like I said, as humans, it's not our nature, and I think that's also the reason why management is not always likely to choose the mentorship part. But yeah, that's also the reason why I'm standing here to let people know how it can benefit a company and yourself as a junior and as a senior. Some other questions? I don't want to be in between your drinks and.
You work at Odina.
Yes.
Is it already being introduced now in the organization?
Yes, actually. So I started at Odina as a Java developer, and at that very moment, I was coupled to a mentor. And yeah, so that was not with regard to the rule choose your own mentor. That wasn't really the case, but we had the right chemistry, so that wasn't the point for me. So at the end, I ended up with a good mentor, and that was also the change of feelings, that I was not drowning, but getting that context where I just spoke about.
But it's also it's done broader.
Within our unit, it is, but it's becoming bigger. So we now have a buddy program, for example. Yeah. All right. I guess this is it. Thank you very much.